I know I've been heaping praise on the Owl House a lot lately, to the point that I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, when is this going to break? When are we going to reach the point where I stop feeling like the show is so praiseworthy? And I've been feeling the same way. And Hollow Mind certainly is not that point. In fact, I'm starting to wonder if this show is even capable at this point of disappointing me. Like, the last time the show kind of disappointed me, it was when we got the Philip is Belos reveal, the one meant for us in the audience. I felt like it didn't have as much impact as I had expected it to, because the characters didn't learn about it at the same time. But I figured that they were going to learn about it soon, and that would have the impact that I expected that moment to have. And spoiler alert for this episode, for the rest of the review of this episode, the summation part anyway, this is the episode where we get that, and I was right. So even that has been invalidated now, because that episode was still a good episode. Not only that, but do you guys remember, those of you who watched it, who also follow my reviews of this show and watch this show, do you guys remember on Steven Universe, and I'll keep this aside brief because I know not everybody who watches the Owl House watched Steven Universe, but do you remember on Steven Universe, back before they started drawing out the mysteries or just forgetting about them, back when the theories, just as they were starting to become a thing, were solved relatively quickly, and the impact was always so fun and so strong? I'm not talking about stuff like the Rose Pink Diamond reveal, where they had to fudge visual evidence to make it work. And don't tell me they didn't, because they did. They just straight up did. Because they waited too long to reveal it, and people caught on sooner than they were supposed to. I'm talking about stuff like Garnet being a fusion. Do you remember how satisfying it was when it was confirmed that Garnet was a fusion? Because they did such a good job of laying the groundwork for it, and then the reveal came soon enough after people started to realize it, that they were still hyped for it. There's like at least 2 moments in this episode that feel like that moment. And they're like interconnected, but they're not like inherently dependent on each other, so I wasn't 100% sure we'd get both of them at the same time, and yet they work so well at the same time. And that is the proper Belos is Philip reveal. Like, we're actually told outright here instead of just shown evidence that we as the audience know means that he is Philip. But we're told that here, and also we get the confirmation of the Grimwalker stuff, and Hunter does at the same time. He now knows that he's a clone. We also, now that I think about it, have our absolute proof that Belos is not going to be the kind of villain that gets redeemed. In fact, at this point, I feel like they'd be doing a disservice to the character if they conjured up a reason to redeem him. It's kind of like to talk about another show that I'm talking about right now again. Amphibia, the villain in that, Andreas, he seems like he is remorseful and regretful over the terrible things he's done, but he's been doing them for so long at this point that I don't see any reasonable reason why he might stop. He's been presented with every single opportunity and reason to stop. I can't imagine what would change at this point. Belos is the same way, except he doesn't feel remorseful at all. He even seems to enjoy this stuff. Like, he isn't just the kind of person who thinks it's necessary or feels pressured into doing it. Even though we find out in this episode that he and his brother, whose name is probably Caleb, were witch hunters who ended up in the Boiling Isles because they seemingly followed a witch back through to the Boiling Isles who had come through to Earth and then got trapped in the Boiling Isles afterwards. But they were witch hunters. They were raised as witch hunters. So it's not like the show doesn't have this excuse, oh, he was a witch hunter. He was always taught that witches were the enemy. So it makes sense that he would go to such lengths. Maybe he's just separated himself so much from witch society, and he had such negative run-ins with a few witches that he met that he doesn't really understand that there's good in witches. But no, he's just straight up an evil bastard. And this show has such balls for doing that. Like, man, and he feels like one of the irredeemably evil, like, old 80s cartoon villains. Except there's like this realistic spin to him. Like, this guy feels like people I know in real life. And I'll talk about that in a little while, but it's genuinely scary. This is a scary guy. And he was already unsettling and intimidating, but like, he's graduated to just full on, like, horror movie monster scary, and I don't mean one of the cheesy ones. I mean one of the ones that, like, gets you psychologically and visually at the same time. In this episode, Luce, while at the night market with Ida trying to get her cloak fixed, Luce's cloak fixed, because it's starting to wear out a little bit, they learn that the places they used to go to for wild witchery are starting to shut down, because as this final push to get everybody to join with covens is becoming greater and greater. I'm really sure I've silenced that today, but that doesn't matter. As it's becoming greater and greater, I'm gonna go ahead and double check it real quick. Actually, I should do it. It's becoming more and more dangerous to associate with wild witches in general. So fewer people are serving Ida now at their businesses. And Luce wants to help with this, so she wants to expose Belos for being the villain that she knows he is. Keep in mind that she's in the exact same place the audience was at the start of this episode. She knows that Belos is a bad guy and that he's up to something, but does not know just how terrible he is, so she gets to learn that and experience the full impact of that right along with us, and it's great. Not so great for Hunter. Not great for her either, but, you know, worse for Hunter, but we'll get to that in a minute. But so she sees Hunter. She sees Hunter in his golden guard outfit running through town trying to intercept a rebel group that he knows is trying to invade the Emperor's mind. And it's these three cloaked figures who, because of the cloaks, obviously we can't tell at all who they are. Like, if I had to guess, I'd say they're Darius, Rain, and Everwolf, but who frickin' knows, right? Wink. But they're casting a spell to try to get into the Emperor's mind, but Luce sees Hunter running towards them, runs after him, and the two of them stumble into the spell, and they end up in Belos' mind instead. And the dude's got a whole upper mindscape that's just false memories. And, like, yeah, it's probably partially to keep people from finding his real memories and his real identity if they do invade his mind in this way. But it's so creepy because they fall through to his real mindscape underneath, and it's so disheveled and in such disrepair. It feels like he intentionally neglects that part of his mind. It feels like he feels like a clinical narcissist. And, like, that's a complicated thing, and I'm not an expert on it. I just know a little bit about it because my dad is one. It's the reason we don't get along. But Belos reminds me of my dad, just surprisingly more evil. He is someone who believes that he is right. If he learns enough about a thing to be convinced of its rightness, then that thing must be right because he thinks it's right. Belos feels the same way. And clinical narcissists in general have this... How do I explain this? They have, like, this ability to weaponize cognitive dissonance to convince themselves that their view of things is correct. And that's what the compartmentalization of Belos' lies in his upper false mindscape and of his true identity and memories in that lower mindscape felt like to me. Couple that with the fact that he genuinely thinks he knows better than an entire world full of people. And that, as we learn in this episode, he's been cloning his brother over and over again because he feels that his brother betrayed him once, in the hopes that eventually one of the clones won't betray him. And every time the clone betrays him, because it's still his brother, it's still the same person with the same values, he kills him again. And he enjoys it because he doesn't see his brother as much a person as him. He is a very extreme case of it, if this is what the crew on the show are going for, but he does come off to me like he has narcissistic personality disorders, and that what it's called? I don't know, I might be using the terms wrong, but you get what I'm saying, right? He just believes himself better than everyone else to such an extent that he feels justified in playing with people's lives this way. Even the manipulation of seeming to open himself up to his people to gain their trust and form a bond between them, a false bond, even that is a narcissist thing. And, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that he's a villain because he's a narcissist. I'm saying he's a villain and a narcissist. Someone who is narcissistic can, of course, not be an awful person. It's just he is an awful person, and it shows itself in these ways because that's the kind of person he is. But what strikes me the most about whatever's going on in his head, whatever is up with him, is how the inner Belos presents himself. Even the inner Belos is false. At first it seems like the inner Belos is this monster thing that is vaguely in his shape, that Hunter and Luce run from throughout most of the episode, and that some manifestation of Belos' true emotions, like the remnant of his goodness or something, has manifested in the form of this kid that seems to be leading them around trying to help them get out. Only for it to turn out in the end that that creepy thing is all of the palisman souls from the palismans that he has destroyed and consumed over the years. That the child is the real him in disguise, and it's been using them to distract the creature as it goes about gathering the resources that it needs from his various memoryscapes to cast a spell to destroy those palisman souls once and for all, and free himself of their influence. Which is horrible in and of itself. It means he's killed all these palismans effectively twice now, which is extremely tragic. But it also implies that he might be even stronger now than he was before, thanks in part to Luce and Hunter's involvement here. And while the fact that his inner self immediately presents itself as a child does suggest that maybe he is stuck in the past, and that he might improve as a person if he moves on from that. I mean, look at everything he's done. Again, he's been presented with seemingly every opportunity to do that. He's never taken a single one. He's not going to. It's just flavor. It's just character flavor. The fact that he presented as a child at first does not make him a sympathetic character. It makes him a little more understandable as a character. And he takes such joy in revealing to Hunter what Hunter is, complete with a hall of memories of all of the past Golden Guards, all of whom were also clones of the same person, all of whom were killed by Belos. There's like one that was petrified, one that was buried, one that was seemingly vaporized. He takes such glee in Hunter learning that, and so casually tries to murder Hunter right there on the spot, that it's chilling. And then he has so much fun revealing who he really is to Luce, revealing that he has known who she is since the moment he first learned she was here on the Boiling Isles, because he does remember her from the past. And this is all just more evidence of the fact that he really does not feel like he can fail. He feels like his plan is too perfect to fail. Otherwise, why would he reveal himself in this way to them at all? Why wouldn't he keep the charade going of the child being fighting the monster up until the very end? And then maybe like stab them in the back in secret or something. No, he genuinely believes that he is that much better than everyone. And while that level of arrogance, that level of self-assured arrogance is probably going to be in some way his undoing, it says a lot about how prepared he actually may be. We also, in this episode, through one of his memories, get to properly meet this collector being, which I didn't talk about some of the stuff I'm going to talk about here because I wasn't sure if they were actually going for what they were going for. I wasn't sure that this thing was actually a being or not, or if it was like some kind of magical program or something. But it is a being. It's almost it's an almost Bill Cipher-esque supernatural thing that seems to have extra knowledge. It's got like a childlike sense of personality, and it has been advising Belos and helping him execute this plan since the very beginning. In fact, unless it turns out that the collector is in some way manipulating things towards a positive end and only using Belos for that, the collector may actually be the real villain of the show. Like, Belos is still going to be a villain, don't get me wrong, but again, to use Amphibia as an example, King Andreas is like the physical threat, but the greater threat, the thing looming over him, is the core. The collector is like that to Belos. While this is going on, though, Ida and King are trying to create a potion that will get the kids out of Belos' mind. Luce has a walkie-talkie that she's able to use to still contact them. They're getting little bits of help from Hunter's palisman, Flapjack, and some unexpected help from those same 3 cloaked figures who seem to want to get Hunter out, even though obviously we can't tell who they are, so we have no idea why they'd want to do that. It's very strange. It's obvious who it is. And it says a lot about them that they seem so worried about the kids in general. And I like that. I like that little bit. They don't say a single word. Not one of the 3 of them says a single word in this entire episode. But we get a lot of character stuff for them regardless. And it's very cool. It's very well done. But they end up helping a little bit. And in the end, after Hunter saves Luce, at one point, Ida and King and Flapjack are able to get them out of Belos' head just in time to keep them from dying. And Hunter, having learned the true nature of his being, and understanding now that he knows this, he can't go back. His uncle will just kill him. He has a panic attack and breaks down and runs away. And my God, between the way it was animated and the way it was voice acted, it was one of the most harrowing scenes I've ever seen in anything ever. It was just so well done that it was hard to watch. Because again, while I've experienced people like Belos in my real life, just not to the same extreme, I've experienced stuff like what Hunter's going through here, just not to the same extreme. I know how he feels. It was hard to watch, but I think telling a story where a character goes through this kind of thing is important. So it's not like I'm disparaging the show over it. I think this is an important story to tell, and they're telling it so well. The fact that it was hard to watch just proves it. It just proves that they're doing such a good job of telling the story. There's all the memories, too, that they ran through. We could talk about those, too, I guess. But, I think I've already gone over the gist of the meat of what's in them. We see other hunters. We see what the sigils are going to do. The arm sigils, that the coven sigils. They're not intended to drain the magic away from people and leave them alive. They're meant to drain the magic away from people and to kill them. He is not just trying to depower all the witches. He's trying to straight up genocide them. Which is also terrifying. But not entirely unexpected. I just didn't expect the show to go there. But that was interesting. What was most interesting, though, I think, was the various paintings we saw that we didn't actually get to enter and that we didn't see super clearly. The ones that tell the story of what happened between these 2 brothers. But man, that story is too dark to be in this show, even when it's dealing with all this other dark stuff. So I understand why they didn't show them clearly, because there's still enough story here for us to get the gist of what's going on, and for kids especially to watch the show and get it without knowing the specific details of that stuff. And I imagine we are going to get some form of the details of it later, like an abridged version. But for those who really have the time and really want to sit down and break it down, you can go through those pictures and get a more complete story of what happened. And I'm going to do that for you guys now by moving over to my second camera. If you'll just allow me a second. And that should be good enough. You should be able to hear me slightly better now. And I'm going to bring up, I have a link one of you guys gave me over on Tumblr. That's Tawani. I love Tawani. For it to it was like a different blog or something. I don't remember what site it was now. But I looked through it a little bit. It's good. There might be more on it now. I'll try to leave that link in the description. But for the purposes of what I want to go over today, because I'm probably going to talk about this again, let's not kid ourselves here. I want to go over this. This is good enough. This gallery here is good enough. This is from Monochromatic on Tumblr. Is this their own? No, I think they just blogged this. So this is from, Subpublic. Yeah. Broke down the story that these pictures are seeming to tell. So let's go over those real quick. 2 brothers grow, and they put little captions. It's very nice. I'm just going to read their captions. It'll help me keep my thoughts focused, right? Because I don't really disagree with any of the stuff they interpreted these as. Right? 2 brothers growing up, working diligently, raised to be witch hunters. It's what they've always wanted. They do seem happy about it, right? They meet a witch and follow them to the demon realm. You can see crossed out in all of them. Very, very serial killery. The elder falls in love. Philip is unhappy. Means that Caleb, or whatever we're calling him, let's call him Hunter Prime, I guess. Original Hunter was the elder, which is interesting to me. I expected Philip to be older for some reason. He confronts them. Philip does. Shows his true intentions. What he ends up doing is he burns down their home and he kills his brother with a knife. Which, God, my God. Like, you could even tell there's a little bit of blood on his face in this reflection. Like, holy crap. Like, look at this. They even call it out here. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Like, it's such a chilling story. And, like, there's no confirmation of it, obviously. Do I have a better angle of some of these? I think I do. Let me look. Real quick. Oh, why is this not loading now? This computer sucks so bad. This is the petrified Hunter. Which, God, that's horrible. That means he's probably still around somewhere on display. Oh, there's one that shows that he carved the glyphs into his skin, which is horrifying. These are from Jess the Vampire on Tumblr, who's also very cool and posts neat stuff about this show. Here we go. Here's the better one. We can't tell for sure, but this woman who seems pregnant, even, like, look at that baby bump. It looks like a baby bump, right? Has almost an Ida-esque silhouette. Like, I can't be sure, and the fans who agree with me on this can't be sure. We may be seeing things, we may be reading too much into this, but I even talked about it in an ask. Here's that ask. Like, and didn't Ida's dad look a little bit like Philip when he had his beard too, right? Like, people think now that the witch that let's keep calling him Hunter, original Hunter, fell for was a Clawthorn, and that their descendants are Ida's ancestors, and that the ruiny area where the door was found behind the Clawthorn house might have been the burned down house of the brother and his witch wife. And that explains Flapjack, a bird-themed talisman. It would have been carved by a member of their family. It's just, man, because like that would have been a way to give a human like magical abilities to some amount, right? I'm shaking a little bit because this is so cool. This is such a cool possibility. Wouldn't it be so neat if Hunter is a Clawthorn, kind of, right? And because people have been talking about how they want Ida to basically adopt him too. That'd be the perfect reason to do it, right? And but that's it. That's the story, seemingly. The original Hunter, Caleb, whatever you want to call him, fell for a witch, maybe a Clawthorn, maybe not. Philip took issue with that because witches are the enemy, right? And killed him and murdered him straight up, and then cloned him and kept cloning him over and over again so that he could keep trying over and over again to get his brother to understand that he's right. That's his motivation. And he even admits it in the episode that he doesn't actually have some greater purpose for Hunter. There is no greater purpose for him as put forth by the Titan. He just wants to keep trying. He just wants to keep trying to make his brother understand because he enjoys it. He enjoys forcing his brother under his thumb like that. And as the collector points out, he, to some extent, enjoys killing his brother over and over again when he fails. It's... This guy is straight up a serial killer in a kid's show. And again, they only kind of imply it. They acknowledge it in dialogue just enough for you to get it, but they don't go too far with it. I think that's the key. They don't go too terribly far with it. The collector, though, is just as interesting. I want to do a little bit of analysis of the collector, too. Where is that? Yeah, there's that. It was a Reddit post. Yeah, okay, that's right. That's why I don't remember it. Reddit is a very forgettable site to me. But the collector, do you guys remember this being from Ida's dream that she seemed to get from the Owl Beast. This is the Collector. This seems to be a physical host of the non-corporeal Collector that seemed to have something to do with the Owl Beast ending up with Ida, or at least ending up where it did to later end up with Ida. And there's also been a lot of people pointing out here, if you look at this necklace of Amity's, which isn't that supposed to be the necklace that her mom gave her or something? I don't remember exactly. But this necklace that she wore for a while, I don't think she does anymore, but she wore it for a while, seems to have the same style and motif as the Collector's whole moon dealie, which implies some connection between them. Which, if I'm remembering right, implies some connection between her family and the Collector, which might be why her family seems to be sort of half unwillingly in the Emperor's pocket. Maybe they have some ancient connection with the Collector. I don't know, it's so interesting. They're laying the foundation for so many elements to be brought together. Now, that can't be the one she got from her mom, because that's after she dyed her hair, isn't it? I don't remember. Let me know how long she's been wearing that necklace. I don't remember exactly. But it's still an interesting connection, right? Just, like, seriously, when is the last time you sat down to watch an episode of a kid's cartoon, even a lore-heavy one like an Amphibia or a Steven Universe or even an Owl House, and there was this much to talk about after just one episode, right? It's so good. This episode is so freaking good. It wasn't the most action-packed or visually impressive, though there were definitely visually impressive moments in it. Episode of this show so far, but I think it might be the best. I think it might be the best one so far. It's just glorious. It's just such a glorious episode. Hard to watch in places, especially if you understand what's actually being said, right? And the introduction of the Collector as basically this childish Bill Cipher Q-esque super being, definitely makes things a little less clear than they used to be. Like, what is the purpose of this thing? What's its end goal? Why is it here? What's it doing? Like, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just a very good episode. Like, even the introduction of the Collector as a thing was something that we expected to happen soon, right? Regardless of what form that thing took. So, like, this episode, it just gave us everything that we expected to be getting soon in a way that was just expected enough and just unexpected enough that it left me completely satisfied from beginning to end. The only tiny nitpick I have about it is that the lead up to them ending up in Belos' mind was so convoluted and coincidental and happened so quickly that it felt a little unrealistic. But, like, that was almost an afterthought. That was almost an afterthought to the episode. It was like, because the episode opens on them already there, and then we flash back to it, right? It was a conceit, and I can get past that conceit to allow for the full experience of this genuinely fantastic story. And hell, now that we know that there are greater forces like the Collector in this world, we could always hand wave away this coincidence saying that they were somehow fated to end up there when they did, right? That's always possible, especially if we're right about these families who all have these connections with each other coming together again now after all this time. I think you could spin that there's some kind of fate at work here, right? I think that works. But just, man, it's so good. It's such a good episode. I'm genuinely worried that the show at this point has plateaued. Even if it has, unless it, like, dips into a valley, a very, very steep valley, I don't really see how the show could not round out to be just absolutely amazing by the end. It's just so good. Like, I've been going back and I've actually been rewatching some of the really early episodes, and, like, they were fun, and they're still fun, and they did a good job of establishing the themes. Looking back at them, I'm actually seeing themes that I didn't pick up on the first time, I think. Which episode am I thinking of? I don't even remember now. It doesn't matter, though. Point is, they were always fun. But man, this already very good and fun show, it was already very good and fun back then, has just somehow managed to evolve so completely into something genuinely spectacular. And I'm so thrilled to be here experiencing it with you guys. All of that said, though, guys, first of all, if there's anything else in this episode, specifically any other details that you'd like me to look at in more detail, do you want me to talk about the collector in more detail, for example, and talk about other things in the show that might pertain to the collector? Because that's definitely something I could research and put together for you guys. Or are there specific scenes that you want me to go over in more detail? Because I could definitely pull more details out of basically any part of this episode. Let me know. Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below about that and about what you thought of the episode in general, right? And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else who you think would enjoy my content, subscribe if you haven't. You can also check out links to my various social medias as well as the many ways you can help out the channel. Those will be in the video description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.